We're back. I've got our tips blended and we're ready to go. I'm going to clean them with my little brush and some alcohol and get all the dust off. Once we're done there, we will prep them with some Protein Bond. I swear by it. When I first started using Protein Bond, it was like, why are my nails lifting? Protein Bond is one of those things that's best used in small quantities. So you don't want to flood the cuticle because it will actually cause lifting. However, so I don't know if you can see this or not. I dab the excess off the brush and then I go along and I prep all the way around the sides. Make sure you get in the cuticle area really well. But if you dab that extra little bit off at first, you won't flood your cuticle. It just won't. It just doesn't have enough on the brush because the brush is tiny anyway. So I just dab that little bitty bit off. And we're going to be using C&D Cover Rose, which is an opaque cover powder, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous color. Looks like the natural nail. And I'm just going to be using that as a cover because her nails, she's been wearing the press-ons, and they're, taking them on and off and on and off. She's done a little bit of damage to her natural nails, so we want them to look as pretty as possible underneath the applications that we're going to do today. And I have my little thing with cover powder in it right here. Now, I did one coat of Protein Bond. You want to go back and you want to do a second? I said second for people that tend to lift. I'm not going to guess if they're going to lift. I'm just going to put it on there. And that way you don't have that problem. Just like Tracy says on Young Nails. Don't guess, just put it on it. But, since I've been using this, nobody has lifted, including myself, and I have very extremely oily nail beds and tons of problems. It doesn't matter what medium you use for my nails, they're going to lift, but they haven't lifted. I can't say that they haven't lifted at all, but they haven't lifted near as bad as what they were lifting before I started using Protein Bond. And that's usually just because I take 3 or 4 weeks to do my own nails in between fills, so I'm really kind of waiting too long. Also, another thing I'll share with you today is I don't just use one size brush on people. I have several different size brushes. I have tiny little brush. I have let me see, this is my new brush. This is a number 8 brush, and it's not crimped. This one is I don't even know what it is. It's I think this one's a 12. This is a 14. I have a lot of different brushes. I have more over there. That's not even all of them. But I go by the size of the person's nails. So if they have a larger nail, I will use a larger brush. If they have a smaller nail, I will use a smaller brush. Today I'm going to use this one and this one. This one is the one that I usually use for like really, really wide nails. So we're not going to use that one. I don't know why this keeps moving around today. I never have problems with that. So what you want to do is you want to dip your brush, like literally, I don't know if you saw you probably can't see it. You want to press it down into the bottom of your pot. Pull this over here. Press it down into the bottom of your pot. That one I had already done, but I'll show you with the other one. There's air in this brush right now. And if you don't get all that air out, you're going to have a real issue. Did you see all the bubbles that just came out of there? You're going to have a real issue with dry, not enough liquid in the brush, dry product. So we're going with liquid to powder ratio is one of the things that I'm going to be showing you today. So you want to be able to have the proper liquid to powder ratio, and you can't have that if your brush is dry inside. It'll be wet outside and dry inside. So I just really basically, I don't know if you can even see. I'll move this over here so you can see. Yeah, you can see that now. I don't, like squish my brush down or anything. I literally just tap off the extra, especially for the pinkies. Can you see that amount on the brush? It's liquid. You can see that it's shining a little bit, but it is not runny. It didn't just run as soon as I got it on my brush. Okay? This is, right here is where I always start on the nail. Right there. This is where your apex should be, is just behind where you placed that tip. Where that tip stopped is your apex. Okay? On the nail. Anything further back, you're going to have a real humpy looking nail. Anything further up, and it's going to be a weak nail. Also, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm literally tapping this into place and then just blending it up into what I already had there. I am not pushing that powder into the cuticle. I see so many people pushing it in there. You want to get your brush, clean it off after you've laid that acrylic. You want to get your brush, you can always tap it back in the liquid if you feel it's too dry. And you want to tap behind the product and it will lay right into place. Now we are literally a millimeter away from the cuticle without actually touching it. If you want, you can even put a little bit more there. Press, press. But don't push, okay? If you get it a little too close, go around with your brush. It should never be closer than the width of the tip of your brush around the cuticle, because it will flood into the cuticle and you'll have a big mess. So, I don't know if you can see that. There's the back portion of it, but we're still thin up here. I don't know. Let me see. There's the back portion of it filled, but we're still thin from here to here. So we take another little bit. We place it right here. Doesn't have to be a lot. A lot of people put a big old glob on there. It does not have to be a glob. Work with less is more at first when you're first learning. And then you can, after you learn how much you need, you can come back and get more as you go, and you'll have the right amount. But see how I'm not pressing it out on the sides? I'm not even filling the sides really. I'm staying up on the top of the nail, because what will happen is if you fill the sides, you're going to wind up with rounded sides, and for a coffin you don't want that. You want it to stay pretty much from here and here over on the top, because you're going to be filing on the sides anyway. So now that one needs a little bit more. Make sure that you wipe your sides and keep it up there on the top instead of letting it go down on the sides. You're going to file those anyway. Why would you put product there? You're wasting product if you put it there. So there you have a nicely built, and you still have enough room to file right in through here. How in the world? I know what it is. It's these stupid sleeves. I'll pull them up. They keep pulling the flannel shirt keeps pulling that. Place it right behind where the tip meets the nail. And see how that got on the nail just a little bit? I mean on the cuticle just a little bit. You just take your brush that is nice and clean. You keep your brush. You don't want to go. Oh, you don't want to do that. You want to just keep it where it's nice and flat. And that way when you need it as an eraser, you can use it as a flat eraser and erase around that cuticle and keep that up there. Never muddle your brush on your towel because you'll wind up with a frayed brush. I saw a couple of people last night saying, help me, they go through a brush a week. I've had these same brushes for years. I go out and I buy myself a brush because I want a new brush. I don't go out and buy myself a brush because I need a new brush. I clean them only with monomer, and I clean them immediately when I'm through. The client's not gonna sit there and tap their watch because you're cleaning your brush. It doesn't take that long to clean it right after you've used it. So I don't just lay it over to the side and come back and clean it. That's when you'll have a mess. And if you ever clean it with acetone, you'll find that it dries it out. It doesn't matter if you put it back into the monomer or not. It's going to dry it out. Kolinsky Sable has, I guess, natural oils in it. The fur itself. And when they use the hairs to create a brush, that natural oil is still in those hairs. And once you put it in acetone, it just sucks that natural oil right out of it. And it's really not ever the same. Everybody says, well, I recondition it with monomer after I clean it. It's just not the same. That's when you're getting a frayed brush, is probably because you're putting it in acetone. The consistency of your liquid to powder ratio should be approximately a soft clay. What you're doing is you are sculpting clay with a brush, or the consistency of clay with a brush. It's one thing to get liquid in the cuticle, it's another thing to get liquid and powder mixed. Set down in that cuticle, because that's going to cause lifting. Once it's in the cuticle, even if you use your brush, it's still going to have a little bit of an acrylic effect that makes it stick to the cuticle. So I'm talking a little bit today while I'm working, and normally I can get a full set done easily within an hour. This one's going to be more like an hour and a half with the polish and everything, just because I'm talking and I'm teaching. But if you can get your time down to 1 hour on your a full acrylic, you're doing pretty good. You can book your clients every hour then. The consistency, it's not going anywhere. Before you put it down on that nail, make sure it's not going to run onto the cuticle. If it is a little too wet, put it on your towel. Just dab the back of it to your towel and it will be fine then. I do think it's easier for beginners to use a flat brush, just simply because it's easier to pick things up with it. And it's easier to smooth. When you have a round brush, they made us use round brushes, and I didn't go to school just for nails anyway. I went for cosmetology, so I'm fully licensed for hair and nails. I think we did 1 day of acrylic nails. What did you do when you went to school? Oh no, did you do 1 day, or did
yes,
you?
1 day.
1 day of acrylic, and then you get out in the real world. And how I became a nail technician, I was really intrigued with it, And I was a nail biter, so I wanted to be able to do my nails for free. And I was going to one of those little shops that, in-out shop. And I was never happy with my nails. I'd walk out and they'd, like 30 minutes later, they were lifting. I don't know, did you ever have that problem?
Yes.
Like 30 minutes later, literally, you're seeing a lift at the back, and I'm like, I just got these. It was improper balance. They didn't prep the nails correctly. They were in a hurry, so they only half prep. And by the time you're out in your car, the first time you bump them on something, which you're going to because you're not used to them now, they're lifting at the back because they're not balanced properly. So, I told all my clients, all my hair clients, I said, I tell you what, I will do your nails for free if you'll come and let me practice on you and do your nails. And, of course, they were all like, oh, yeah. So, within a year, I was really good at doing nails because I was doing all these free nails. And then I started telling my clients, well, I think I'm pretty good at it now. Would you mind if I started charging? And they, literally every single one of them was like, oh, I can't afford it. So I had to start building a nail clientele from there. But at least I had my hair to do too, and I was still making money. But yeah, they'll sure show up. Something to be had, but I do like doing nails, and I like it because it's never the same. There's no two nails. I don't care if you do the same design on someone that you just did on the person that left. They're just not going to turn out the same. They're just going to come out two different designs, and that's the uniqueness of it. And it breaks the monotony. When you're sitting in a chair all day long doing nails, you're not doing the same thing over and over. You're actually getting to do something different every time. And I think that's what I like the most about it. I see so many people's nails that are really bulbous when they're starting to shape, kind of rounded on the edges, and I think that's because they're putting too much product on the sides. Like, let me try it on this one. It's hard for me to do that but say you just went, I can't. I can't, because it would irritate me. Say you went like this, and then you just straighten that out, and then you come back and you do this. You see the roundness of that right there? You want to get that off of there. You don't want that. You want your weight in the middle, because you're going to be filing your sides anyway. And even though your sides may be a little bit thin, they're going to be fine once you file on them. They'll come up to the thicker part of the acrylic there on the sides. Got a little glitter there. I don't know where that came from. My birds are having a field day outside. My whole yard is full of birds, which at 5 a.m. is very annoying, but the rest of the day it's kind of peaceful. My neighborhood used to be a park before they built these houses, and so we've got squirrels, and there's actually flying squirrels out there. One of the neighbors said, "What is this? I just found it walking up the tree." And I was like, "Put that back. It's a baby flying squirrel." Well, it's not going to live. And I said, "It'll be fine. It's trying to get back to its nest. It probably just went out and ventured out for the first time. Just put it back." Don't touch the baby squirrels. It was a cute little guy, too. Again, with the liquid to powder ratio, if it looks a little runny on your brush, wait a second before you put it on the nail. it will actually kind of settle down. Wait until it, if it's too dry, you're going to have lifting. So I would rather have too much liquid. I've got a little piece in there or something. I'd rather have too much liquid than not enough liquid. Too much liquid, you can always blot it off. Not enough liquid, you're going to put it on there. You're not going to have enough working time, so it's going to wind up being a huge blob. And you're not going to have a pretty nail. It's going to be a catastrophe. And then you're going to have a lot of filing to do because it wasn't didn't flow out right, I guess you could say. You want enough liquid that you can work with it for a second. This is I use C&D Retention Plus liquid. Solar Nail, it is a slower setting liquid. The Retention Plus is a faster. But I don't like a slower setting because literally, okay, this powder, this cover powder is a speed powder. It's a little bit faster. So I use the cover powder with the Retention Plus, and it sets up almost immediately. But I've done nails for so long I can do that. Some people need more working time. I would suggest working with one of their clear powders rather than the opaque powders while you're practicing. And get yourself one of them. Looks like a robot, the practice hands. I also have a video on little practice hand hacks, how to keep the nail tips on there. Because a lot of people, when I bought mine, it said, newly designed practice hand, nails stay on better. And I got it, and the nails didn't stay on at all. Just pushing them in, like, they'll tell you on young nails, theirs just snap in. But you have to push them really hard, and you have to hear that, what he calls the third click. On mine, you have to literally take the end of the tip off, put the tip into it, and slide it back on. And then it is in there, and it will not come out. But there's no directions with it because it came from China. So I made a video. I figured it out one day. I don't even know how I figured it out. Out of frustration, probably. And so then I made a video for everybody that has a hand that doesn't know how to keep the nails on. Because they were all like, help, my tips won't stay on. Same frustration I was having before I realized that the ends of the silicone tips slide off. And you can push that little tip in there and then slide the tip back on. And works great. Doesn't come off at all. You can file away. So get yourself a practice hand. I'm not crazy about the ones with the silicone because you have to literally use a little dab of glue and glue them up, and they get built up with glue, and then you have to scrape that off. It just makes a big mess. We also have another hack on there. How you can cut the tips that come with it. You can cut it down and just use the nub to glue like a coffin shaped clear tip or whatever. If you're wanting to do clear tips and practice with your nail art, you can just do that. A little bit more, a little bit too. This one and the thumb, and we'll be ready. And then I'll go off camera to file, and then we'll come back and we'll do a third video on. I don't even remember what my subjects are. We've gotten how to get as close to the cuticle without touching. We've done that one. And we'll come back and we'll do one on how to polish with gel properly. I've seen a lot of questions on the forum that I'm a member of, and it says, help, what am I doing wrong? And their gel polish would be wrinkled on one side, or that could be several different things, but I'm going to try and give you some tips on how to prevent that as well. So the darker the polish, the less light refraction. Therefore, you need to make thinner layers of gel. Don't be impatient. The very first layer is the critical one. That's the one that will make it stay on the nail or fall off the nail. So what I do is I always go and I put a very thin layer, like even with the black, where you can see through it. And that way, you know it's going to cure in the light. Because black, if it's too thick, it is not going to cure in that light. You're going to have to leave it in there for about 5 minutes. Who wants to do that? You're actually saving time by putting a very thin layer. So we'll come back to that, because I'm going to be using a dark, a medium, and a light red, which red is one of those that doesn't want to cure in the light. You have issues with it. And so we'll show you how to do that. I'm just about through building these. And I don't know if you saw that just then. You just kind of walk it around the cuticle with the tip. I'm using very light pressure, by the way. With the tip of the brush, you just walk it around the cuticle and place it into place. You're not pushing. If you push, you're going to get product in the end of your brush. And then you're going to have to clean your brush with acetone, which does what? It makes the brush fray. So even if you dip it in monomer afterwards, there is a way to fix your brush bristles with soap. There's a video on YouTube. I haven't watched it, but I've heard about it, and you can use a bar of soap to put your bristles back in shape. But the natural oils that were in it are still going to be gone, and you're going to have trouble with it every time you use it. Need a little bit more right under there. All right, we're done with that. We'll be back shortly.